After a 6-hour meeting, Turkish President Erdogan and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, have agreed to a ceasefire in Idlib, Syria. Now, they both represent both sides of this conflict. As we all know, there's a giant proxy war in Syria. Now, Idlib, the last rebel stronghold in Syria, has witnessed increased violence and bloodshed since last December, the start of a Russian-backed Syrian offensive to regain control over the region. So Russia supports Bashar al-Assad, whereas Erdogan supports the rebels who have risen up against Assad. Now, until the latest crisis, Putin and Erdogan managed to kind of coordinate their interests in Syria, even though Moscow has backed one side and Turkey has backed the other. Now, since last December, more than 300 civilians, including at least 100 children, have been killed in Idlib. And Erdogan has added that Turkey, which has sent thousands of troops into Idlib to repel the Syrian army, would not remain silent on attacks by Syrian government forces, and warned that they would retaliate with full force. But honestly, this ceasefire is shaky. I never get too excited about ceasefires because they're usually broken immediately, especially in wars like this. But as things stand right now, it seems like Erdogan received most of the concessions that he wanted because he doesn't want all these Syrian refugees settling in Turkey.
Yeah. Well, two things here. First of all, I do nuance, and sometimes people do the right thing, sometimes they do the wrong thing. It could be the same person. So I don't think Erdogan should have gone into northern Syria in the first place. I think he pushed out the Kurds there, and we talked a lot about that on the show. And I don't think Donald Trump should have pulled our troops back there and exposed the Kurds to that. Now, having said that, in this case, Erdogan looks to be the good guy. Russia is bombing the civilians of Idlib, and 4 million people displaced overall, and tons and tons of civilians have been driven out of Idlib, and they're actually calling it the worst humanitarian crisis in the entire Syrian civil war, which has been one giant humanitarian crisis. And Erdogan has two motives here. One is Anna's right; he doesn't want all those refugees settling into Turkey, and he's doing another interesting but effective threat. He's saying, all right, if I have to take all the refugees, why don't I open my borders and let them go into Europe? And how do you see if you guys want to help out in helping the refugees? And then all of a sudden the Europeans are like, Vlad, maybe you ease up on those Syrian civilians. Oh, okay, now we're having a conversation. That's smart politics, and it's the right thing to do. And now they've opened up a corridor so the civilians can go back into Idlib. The second thing is that what's never talked about in the West. Erdogan paints himself as a defender of Muslims. And sometimes, it's propaganda. But other times he actually does deliver. He helped the refugees in Myanmar when almost no one else did. And here he is again helping Muslims and protecting them from the slaughter that Putin and Assad are doing. So give credit where credit is due. In this case, Erdogan's the good guy and Putin's the bad guy. And I'm glad that Erdogan was able to strong arm him into a ceasefire to stop murdering civilians, including 100 children. Remember, we bombed Syria, US bombed Syria at one point because of a chemical attack where a couple of kids had died, and we showed all the pictures, and that was horrific. But a lot more kids have died here. If we showed you the pictures, should we then join Turkish forces in fighting against Russia? I don't know that that's the right policy, of course, but understand when the media wants to do an attack and when they don't, that's when they either show you the dead kids or don't show you the dead kids. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.